Welcome back. Part 2 of this series will look at most of the archetypes you will see in the current meta, and this guide should help you identify what playstyle you are fighting and some method of countering it. Obviously, every player is different, and it is not uncommon for players to mix and change playstyles mid-fight, but it is worth noting that while these are broad generalizations and not applicable to everyone, the ideas are relevant to most encounters. Builds will focus on one of three objectives: stamina, range, and reacting, and each focus has its strengths and weaknesses, which will be covered and expanded upon in this video. There are three common stamina-focused builds, which I will refer to as tanks, pressure, and quick-stepping daggers. Users of this strategy aim to outlast your stamina and strike when you are unable to roll or counterattack. They often look to make you roll or attack unnecessarily in order to set them up, so it's best to use patience here. The ranged builds are less common, but users of these will try to use their high damage to keep melee users off of them. Their range lets them stay on the offensive when you are at a distance, but most of their attacks are easy to dodge, so in fact, drawing you in to deal major damage is a common win condition. Users of reactive builds will try to find your weakness and exploit it. They typically don't attack until you do, and spend some time trying to learn or predict your moves. The builds here are more dependent on the experience of the user, and result in some impressive duels when used well, but long boring fights when not. Here I can see my opponent has a great shield, and so I employ, in my opinion, the strongest strategy to deal with him, the Jehovah. I knock a few times, pretend to leave, then come back when he opens his door. This mind game is almost always successful, and the turtles can do very little to deal with it. It is also a good demonstration of a pressure strategy. I am staying close and attacking often. I don't expect to break his guard, but doing this lets me be in range to land hits as soon as his guard is lifted, or land a hit after he rolls. Just keep in mind your own stamina, and remember to back off when you get low. Pressure styles see your opponent play close to you to either induce panic rolls, which will drain your stamina without spending their own, or beat you to your attack animation, causing a stun lock. Weapons such as curved and straight swords and the great knife are indicators of this style. Quick step daggers can be overwhelming for newer players due to their speed and ability to avoid damage. The easiest counter to this is to merely spam R1 or your light attack. As they circle you, you will eventually hit them and either stun lock them or outtrade them. Bows are almost never seen, but being outdamaged by a great bow should be of some concern, as their user will not take counter damage. Magic has the ability to home in on targets, meaning you will have to roll through most attacks even when contact looks unlikely. Most magic has the same casting animation but different casting times, so you will not know which spell is being used. Your best option is to pressure and attack. The mages will not have enough poise to tank the hit, so you will stun lock them. Miracles can be cast with poise, which is indicated by a faint gold glow during use. Common miracles involve swapping between lightning stakes and lightning spears, so don't get greedy thinking it's a spear when they start to cast in case it's a stake. Lightning arrows are more likely to be seen and can be held, making dodging them tricky. If you see the poise glow, do not trade, as they will likely outdamage you. Pyromancy has some disgusting moves, such as spamming Black Flame at close range and spraying low damage fire to deal chip damage or finish you off. The best counter is to wait for them to run out of spells, since they rely so heavily on them. However, with 7 to 15 Ashen Estus, that could take a long time. The other option is to hit them with a faster weapon to knock them out of their animations, or a very high damage weapon to outtrade them. If your opponent is two-handing a large weapon, there is a good chance this is the strategy they will use. The idea is to take one hit from you while dealing two of theirs. This tactic works well if they have heavy armor, but the most important thing is that they have patience. If they attack at the same time as you, they will likely win the fight. The best counter to this is to bait their attack first, where you can outspace them. This works better when they are impatient. However, you can counter their patience by using a fast weapon and attacking first. Landing one R1 and rolling as fast as you can is a slow and risky method of beating this build, but it is sometimes the best option. Unmatched weapons are not very common, but their users are mostly quite skilled, as they normally know the limits of their weapons and when to use each. It is hard to generalize these builds as they can vary greatly, but they normally have a longer reach weapon and a fast short weapon. The unpredictability of these builds is their main strength, as it can allow them to attack more freely against parry fishers and R1 spammers. As they use their weapons with one hand, they are vulnerable to being parried. The best option is to space their longer weapon, parry, or try to use a poise counter, depending on the combination. The pace and space builds use a fast weapon with some range. Straight and curved swords work best as they provide a good pace and sufficient space. The idea with this build is to place yourself just out of range of your opponent, but as they attack, they bring themselves within your range. Attacking when your opponent attacks will make it hard for them to roll away, letting you land a good combo. This build is heavily dependent on the connection, as it requires a higher degree of precision than some other builds. In particular, Phantom Range will force you to adjust your spacing, and in some cases make this strategy impossible to pull off. Parry Kings or Parry Fishers will try to get you with very cool parries which they may or may not spam. This can be extremely dangerous depending on their experience and their connection, but can be overcome with unparryable weapons, delaying your attacks, or backstab fishing. In this clip you can see my opponent and I both attacking with varying frequency to avoid being parried by the other. You can also see the weakness of this build, as the high ping prevents my well-timed parry from registering. This leads me to go for a backstab. Backstab fishing is done either aggressively or passively. Passive backstab fishing sees the player circle you without running and is more common against turtles. Attacking in these situations will benefit you. Aggressive fishers will hold block and run at you. Most players may think a running attack is coming and try to parry or attack. A parry will let them run past you to backstab, while an attack is not guaranteed to stop them. The best option is to try one attack and roll. Backstabs can be especially dangerous if the ping is high, as you may snap to them even when rolling away.